Assalamu alaikum grade 6 students. Today the topic which I am going to take is friction. Let us see what is friction. For this, while watching the video, you may do a small activity. You need to rub your palms against each other, the palm of both your hands against each other in opposite direction, as it is shown with the blue and red arrow. You have to do it for at least 1 or 2 minutes. So if you rub your palm and after 2 minutes, when you wait, you will feel that your palms have become warm. They become warm. You feel warm. Now, why does this happen? And what is this called as? Let us see. So we come to the definition of what is friction. Friction is a force between two surfaces that are sliding or trying to slide across each other. So what y'all were doing now, y'all were sliding or y'all were rubbing both the palms against each other. So when two things are in contact and they are sliding or they are rubbing against each other or they are crossing each other, what happens is friction is created between those two surfaces. Now, what does this friction do? It slows the movement of an object and it is always in opposite direction of the motion of an object. So if the movement is towards the right, the force of friction will be towards the left. So what is friction? Friction is a force acting between two bodies or two surfaces which are in contact with each other and they are sliding or rubbing. Contact means they shouldn't be stable. Okay, they should move. There should be some movement happening between those two bodies. So if they are moving, two surfaces, if they are moving against each other, friction is created. Now you can see in these two images, let's see the left one first on the smooth surface. Yes, the boy, the man, the person is pushing the object towards the right, shown with blue arrow. So the motion is towards the right, so friction will always act in opposite direction. So friction will be towards the left. So the blue arrow is the motion of the object. That means where the movement of the object will be, that is right, to the right, and the friction will be to the left. Okay, same with the second image. This time the person is again pushing towards the right and friction is towards the left. Number two, you can see the words which are written with push and friction. In the left one, the surface is a smooth surface. The man or the person is moving the object on a smooth surface. So if the surface is smooth, the friction is less. That is why in the first image it's written low friction. So the movement, the opposition to the movement is very less. That is why the person will need less energy to push that object. So that is why it is written small push. But if you see in the second image, the surface is a rough surface. So here on a rough surface, friction is very high. So here the person has to struggle to move the object. That is why he will give a big push to the object. So friction is low on a smooth surface, while friction is high on a rough surface. Now if objects are moving against each other, friction is created, there are effects of friction. So let's see what are the effects of friction. The first effect is friction produces heat. So in the activity where the palms are rubbing against each other, you will feel that after a few minutes, your they become warm. That means when friction takes place, heat is also produced. So friction produces heat. The next effect of friction is friction causes wear and tear. If two things are used again and again, after some time they will wear out and then you need to replace it. So this is because of friction. And the third effect of friction is friction opposes motion. Okay, so the movement of the object is the speed of the object is reduced. The motion is opposed by friction. So it reduces the movement of the object. This is the third effect of friction. Let us see all these with examples now. Yes, we talked about the friction. Friction causes wear and tear. Now, what are the examples, your daily life examples? Your shoe sole, the sole of your shoe or your sandal. Yes, after wearing it for few months or a year, then they have to be replaced with a new one. Why this happens? Because when you're walking, when we walk on the surface of the ground, on the earth, yes, on the floor, what happens? The sole of the shoe rubs against the floor. So there is friction created between the sole of the shoe and the floor. So this causes the shoes or sandals to wear out. Yes, and then we have to replace it with a new one. Then ultimately we cannot wear those shoes or sandal. Then the next image again, it's a tire of a vehicle. So when a vehicle moves on a road, there is continuous friction which is produced between the tire and the road. So tire and road, they are continuously in contact with each other and friction is created between those two. So after few years also the tires, they wear out and then they have to be replaced with a new one. So the effect of friction, we can see here that it causes wear and tear. So the more you walk with the shoe or more the tire of a vehicle, the running is more of the vehicle, very fast there is wear and they get wear out. Okay, so they have to be replaced immediately. But if there is a shoe which you wear it rarely or sometimes, then those they don't wear out very easily because then the friction is less, you have used it less. Yes, and the next image, it opposes the next effect of motion of friction we had seen is it opposes the motion. Yes, so when an object is moved on a surface, okay, of course the person will need force to push, but then it opposes the motion. The force of friction acts in the opposite direction of the motion. So with the black arrow on the top, you can see the movement of the cupboard is towards the right. But then force of friction will try to hinder it. It will try to oppose it, stop it, okay, reduce the motion in the opposite direction. That is why the force of friction arrow, which you can see down is in red, is towards the left. So always motion and force of friction are in opposite direction, as force of friction opposes the motion of an object. One more effect of friction is it produces heat. Let us see a few examples on this. Yes, if you take an iron nail and you rub it on a rough surface stone, okay, an iron nail, if you rub it on a rough stone for some few minutes, you will observe that after some time nail becomes hot. Okay, nail is a Nail is made up of metal. Metals are good conductors of heat, yes. So you will feel that nail becomes warm. Yeah, it becomes hot. If you rub it for more than 5 minutes, it will really become very hot. So this is nothing but because of friction, it becomes hot. Okay, so because there is continuously the iron nail and the rough surface of the rough stone surface, they were in contact and they were rubbing against each other. So whenever two things are rubbing against each other, friction is produced, and where friction is produced, heat is produced. Okay, and then in the images you can see that a mixer grinder, yes, y'all can ask to your mom also when something is being grinded in the mixer jar. Okay, so you can, and if it works for few minutes or few seconds also, you can feel that the jar becomes warm. All right, after a few minutes the jar becomes warm. This is why does it become warm? Because there was, what was in contact, the blade inside the grinder, that blade was in contact with the food item which was being grinded. So they both were in contact with each other and friction was created, and because of this friction heat was produced. In the next one also, using a hand pump, if air is inflated in a balloon, okay, again here this happens, okay, if the pumping of the hand pump goes for few minutes, it will become warm. This is again because of friction. So these were the examples where friction, this shows that friction produces heat. Let me show you few examples of friction. Okay, few examples connected to your daily life where friction is involved. Okay, so if you write something with a pencil or a pen or on a paper, the tip of the pencil is in contact with the paper, so the two things are in contact, and then you are movement, you're writing means your movement is happening on the paper. So what will happen? You can write because of friction. Because of friction you are able to write on a piece of paper. The next image shows you, it is the image of a bicycle brake pad. Okay, and the rim of a wheel. Rim means the border of a wheel. Okay, so the brake is in contact with the rim of a wheel. So here again, if a person applies the brake of a bicycle, what will happen? The brake will come in contact with the rim of the wheel, and ultimately the wheel will stop. So this is nothing, this happens only because of friction. So the wheel stops turning as friction opposes motion. Yeah, it will stop, and if friction is more, the motion will be completely stopped. That means the bicycle will not move at all. So this is again where friction is seen in our daily life. Okay, there are different forms or kinds of friction. Okay, there are different names. As you go in higher grades, you will have again more names or different physical terms for these. Okay, in simple words, now let us see which are the different types of friction. The first one, when something is moving in the air, it is called as air friction. So okay, so friction also takes place in air particles. When something is moving, let's see in this example, an aircraft is moving. Okay, and in the first image, okay, to the left, aircraft is moving in air. So it's the aircraft is moving towards the right. It is shown motion with the black arrow to the right. So friction, air friction will be towards the left. Air friction is also called as air resistance. So there is friction in air also, that is called as air friction. Then when something is rolling on a surface like wheels, the tires, okay, if wheels are rolling on a surface on the road, it is called as rolling friction. So if the object rolls, it is a rolling friction. The next is sliding friction. So when the objects are sliding over each other, okay, two surfaces are sliding over each other, it is called as sliding friction. The example given in the third one is the ski on a snow covered hill. The bottom of the skis, they slide, it slides over the snow. So here again, friction is created between the snow and the bottom of the ski. So here, this only happens because of sliding friction. There is also friction which takes place in water surface. That friction is called as viscous friction. Okay, so when something is moving in the body, in the water body, like if someone is swimming, or a boat is moving, or a duck is in the water, what happens is there is friction which acts on that object or on that thing. Okay, that friction which takes place in water is called as viscous friction. It is also called as water resistance. So these are the few examples of friction. Here this example is again on friction, where the tire of a vehicle is shown. Yes, and whenever a vehicle moves on a road surface, there is friction created between the road and the tires, and that friction is called as static friction. So this is again one more kind of friction. Static friction acts between the tire and the road. And here, if you can again see the arrows, if the vehicle, the car is moving towards the left, shown by black arrow, friction will be in opposite direction. So friction is towards the right, shown with red arrow. So motion and friction, they are always in opposite direction. Example of sliding motion. One more example of sliding movement. Sliding friction. So when children, they slide over the slides in a garden, there is friction created between the surface of the slide and their body. So here again, friction takes place, and this is an example of sliding friction. Then while walking, there is continuous contact of your shoe with the ground. So this is the surfaces they rub against each other. So this is also one of the example of friction. There's one more type which is called as rolling friction. You saw another example of rolling friction I've shown here is a ball moving or rolling over on the surface on the ground, let's say on the ground. So if a ball is rolling on the ground, there is the surface of the ground and the ball, they come in contact with each other. So friction is created between the ball and the ground. And again, if you see the arrows, the black arrow is motion of the ball, that is, ball is moving towards the right, and the friction will be in its opposite direction, which is shown with yellow arrow down at the bottom. So if motion is towards the right, friction will be towards the left. Then one example again of air friction. Airplanes moving in air, yes, they experience air friction. Similarly, a parachutist, okay, if he is in the air, he will experience air resistance. Yes, now in this case, in this example, where will that friction be acting? Okay, so where is the parachutist? Where is the movement of the parachutist? Parachute is coming down on the ground. Okay, why is it coming down? Because of the Earth's gravity. Earth's gravity is pulling the parachutist down. So here in this example, movement, the motion of the person is downwards, so the friction will be upwards in its opposite direction. So air friction will be up, and the movement of the or the motion of the parachutist is down. So they are in opposite direction. Then this example we already saw when you write something on a paper. Again, here there is sliding. You slide the pencil, yeah, when you write the letters or numbers on the paper. So this is an example of sliding movement, sliding friction, where friction is created by sliding the pencil over the paper. So these were the few more examples of friction. And the last one, again, here in this example, in the olden days, these grinders were used. Okay, the grains were put in these grinders, and then here there are two stones, as you can see. There's a stone kept up, and there is a grinding stone which is kept down, and then the grains are put between those two. So here, how do the grains they get grinded here? This is nothing big but the effect of friction. Both the stones they rub against each other, and friction is created between those two, and with the help of that friction only the grains are grinded. So you can see so many examples we saw where friction is present everywhere around us in our daily life, and yes, it is useful also. So we saw what is friction. We also saw what are the types of friction and what are the effects of friction. Thank you.